Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 37. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. In just about 24 hours from now, the Pittsburgh Steelers will take on the Cincinnati Bengals for their second straight AFC North game. Pittsburgh trying to go to 2-0 on the season in the division and 5-1 in 2025. So, Dave, jam-packed show today, still looking back at the Browns game, and of course, getting ready in a hurry for the Bengals tomorrow.
Who's this? Alex who?
Oh, there's an inside joke there. If you're online, you're aware. I'm gonna take the high road here, Dave.
All right, I'll follow suit then. It's not my strong game to do, but okay, I'll do that as well too. Happy Wednesday, Alex. Short week here. Trying to cram a lot of stuff in this week. Get some Bengals versus Packers stuff ready. Look, I'm curiously looking forward to the Icy Hot Bowl coming up on Thursday night, and I don't know. We'll get into this obviously later in the show and preview, but this game sets up for. I don't know how you want to term the icy hot battle going a little deeper. It's like Aaron Rodgers versus Aaron Rodgers or Joe Flacco versus Joe Flacco. Both of these offenses are really at the point where old quarterbacks not very mobile. Get the ball out quick, don't make mistakes, and see if your defense can come up with the play and maybe on the offensive side register an explosive play or two. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But big storyline obviously is this is another divisional game for the Steelers coming off of what ended up being a convincing win over the Browns. The Steelers, look, I mean, frame this however you want, and it's obvious the Steelers should be be the favorites in this game. But whatever momentum you have at this point, all of that's going to go away however you lose this game, if you lose this game to the Bengals on Thursday night. And the fact that this is a divisional game, the fact that it is on the road, the fact that it is a short week, the fact that you are playing an experienced quarterback in Joe Flacco, any given Thursday night, as the kids like to say, I guess. But big week here, and I am looking forward to the game, and I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you and our guests today.
And that is Jay Morrison we'll have later on in the show, covers the Bengals for BengalsTalk.com. Any given Thursday night, is that what the kids say?
Maybe that's what us old folks say.
Yeah, that's what Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco
Right.
and Dave Bryan, men of a certain age bowl, have to say.
Right.
All right, Dave, let's get into this one. Some housekeeping. Pittsburgh will lump this into the injury situation and health of the team in one moment, but should note the team opened the window and designated to return inside linebacker Malik Harrison. That was reported and announced by the team, I should say, on Monday night. So we'll see if he's able to get back for this Bengals game. Pittsburgh will have until Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time to make any roster elevations and potentially activate Harrison off of IR, with Myles Killebrew already ruled out with that severe knee injury that I assume will end his season. Could Harrison swap in for Killebrew and help out on special teams? Won't replace Killebrew fully, I would imagine, as for example, PP on the punt team, but we'll see if Harrison can get back and give Pittsburgh some additional depth.
Yeah, and once again, boy, you hate it for Myles Killebrew, and obviously already ruled out. We'll see if they just carry him on to 53 through the weekend before doing anything. But with the window open for Harrison, and being that you can get some special teams contributions, and as Mike Thomas said, they'll probably have to piece this thing together as far as special teams contributions and roles and all like that. Remind me from the preseason who the personal protectors were.
I meant to look it up. I know Sebastian Castro had gotten work there. And I think those were kind of the main two guys. Now, obviously, Castro's now gone. He was poached off of Pittsburgh's practice squad by Tampa Bay before the Killebrew injury. So it really was those two guys getting the up back work.
And then we saw Gainwell get a shot at that in this game against the Browns after Killebrew went down, right?
Right. Gainwell was to fill in for Killebrew. I don't know if that's the plan going forward. I don't know who else would be candidates. I'm sure some other guys got some PP work. Again, I don't think Trey Sermon did. I can try to check my notes here quickly. I meant to do that. It's just been, as you know, a crazy week here trying to get ready for this Bengals game while still reviewing the Browns game. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I have any other notes here pertinent. Looks like Castro, Evan Hull was getting work there, no longer with the organization. So think of the guys that were getting that work. They're no longer with a team.
All right, tell the people about the visitor this team had in on I guess it would have been Tuesday.
Yeah, as one potential true replacement for Myles Garrett, something more one-to-one. Pittsburgh bringing in George Odom for a visit. Not a workout, but just a visit. He's 31 years old. He's a special teams guy himself, formerly of the Colts and the 49ers, had 16 tackles last season. To one-time first-team All-Pro, also second-team All-Pro in 2022 as that special teamer. So he has not signed yet. We'll see if that happens after the Bengals game during this mini bye, but that could be your actual Killebrew special teams ace replacement.
Was he a personal protector?
I hadn't checked it. I imagine he's probably got a background doing that. I can try to look at that right now on PFF, but wouldn't surprise me if he did. And we talk about that and what does a personal protector mean? It's the quarterback of that unit. It's the guy that announces how many rushes there are. It's the guy that actually gets the ball snapped. The punter is not going to do a snap count and call it for the snap, or the up back is responsible for communicating the snap. And so basically just coordinating everything, the blocking scheme, how many rushes there are, 8 up, that kind of stuff, and getting the snap off. That is the role of the personal protector and why it is so important.
Looks like he did some of that with the 49ers.
Did he?
Yeah,
Okay.
last season there. They have him listed as personal protector left, personal protector right in some games from last season there. So it looks like that's in his bag, if you will.
Yeah, no surprise there. I'm seeing him do it throughout his career. So would make sense if he ends up getting signed. Well, but it's not going to be an asset, I assume, for the Bengals game because they have not signed him yet. And so with the team basically having just one practice this week and traveling today, we'll see if that's a thing for week 8 against the Packers.
All right, something to definitely watch then. Obviously, if they don't sign him, hopefully the Steelers don't have to punt a lot. How about that? That would be nice in this one. So we'll monitor what happens with Odom. All right, the rest of the injury report here. A lot of rest. We needed that rest this week.
We showed up on there, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, a lot of rest for the veterans. But the good news is Pittsburgh generally healthy on this short week. So that short week is always tough, especially on the road. But the only 2 players who have not practiced at all this week because of injury are of course, Killebrew and Calvin Austin with the shoulder. Pittsburgh will release its final report later today. You guys may know it by the time you listen to this. I'm going to assume Austin will not play and try to get back for week 8. But beyond that, Malik Harrison has been limited on Tuesday. And the Monday report was an estimated report. They held a walkthrough. They're holding a walkthrough today. So you're not getting a lot of practice reps. And so take these things with a bit of a grain of salt. But assume Austin is out. Killebrew obviously is out. Harrison, we'll see if he gets activated. But beyond that, healthy group.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to go back and highlight coming out of this game against the Browns was that from about 10, and we talked about this, and I went through your charting and all and highlighted it, put it out on Twitter yesterday. I think from about 10:30 on in the fourth quarter of that game against the Browns, TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward did not see the field. So they almost got the entire fourth quarter off. And on a short week, you never know. I mean, look, that can only help. I mean, you know, those guys didn't have to play every snap against the Browns, and with a short week coming to get those guys, that limited or get them some time off the field, hopefully will pay some dividends for this for them two specifically against the Bengals.
Can't hurt, that's for sure. So for Pittsburgh to win multi-score for a change is nice. It also kind of spoke to how confident Mike Tomlin was in the rest of his defense to shut down the Browns offense and make sure this would not become a game, because it was still only a 2-score game, and he basically pulled some of his starters in Hayward and Watt. Ramsey, Elliott was getting time off late in this game. So Tomlin kind of said, I think half of our backups can go take care of Dylan Gabriel for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and they did. They give up some, obviously a couple of longer drives in there, played a lot of kept the lid on things, kept everything up underneath, allowed some yards after the catch and all like that. But for the most part, I think what they were asked to do was just don't give up the big play, don't give up the long touchdown, and let the Browns make them have to earn it in those last few possessions. And obviously the Browns weren't able to do that. So
they weren't even trying. The Bengals or the Browns just kept everything short. What was the longest air yards Gabriel had in this game in terms of an attempt? 15. What was the longest downfield throw that he even tried? I guess there were a couple of vertical shots about maybe the 15-yard line. But I mean, they were just keeping things short the entire game. So, but point taken, Dave. Yeah, they definitely just said keep it short, let the clock run, and we'll get out of here with the W. My only other observation from the Steelers side, and it's a very minor, and I say this a little tongue in cheek. Pittsburgh's been a little fast and loose with Darius Slay. They've just been listing him as rest the entire season, despite him having self-described injuries from Mike Tomlin. He had a shoulder injury in this game against Cleveland. He's had ankle stuff that Tomlin's talked about. He's always just listed as rest. And so, I assume that that's all kosher, but it just kind of makes me laugh that Slay's constantly dealing with something, but never actually on the report for an injury.
All right. Concussed birth certificate, I guess.
From the Bengals side, and we'll talk to Jay here in a little bit to get a better lay of the land. The name to watch here is Trey Hendrickson, the Bengals star defensive end, one of their best players, period, and especially the best guy on defense. He's got a hip injury. He hurt against Green Bay. He did not practice on Tuesday, and I believe this was an estimated report, so there wasn't a formal practice, but that would have been his status, the Bengals say.
They practice at night.
Oh, they practice at night?
Yeah, that's why they released just an estimated before they practice, but they and obviously I don't think that was updated after the fact officially, but I think because I saw, and we'll ask Jay about this as well too, I think they practice at night at the stadium.
Okay, but the report they issued was still technically an estimated report for what it would have been for whatever they did on Tuesday night. Okay, well, bottom line is Hendrickson did not practice, I assume, and his status is very much up in the air for this game.
And boy, if I think after he left that game against the Packers, he did not return, and we'll see how he gets listed later today. Even if he plays against the Steelers on Thursday night, and boy, do they need him. You would expect him probably not to play the full complement of snaps, and he's probably not going to be 100% Trey Hendrickson, especially the fact that he didn't, because that was an important game. They needed to win that game against the Packers, and if he couldn't play, for most of the second half of that one, makes you kind of wonder just how healthy he is, and if he does play once again Thursday night, he's obviously not going to be 100%.
But even 80% for Hendrickson is still an effective rusher. So if he suits up, then that's still going to be a positive for them.
I think they get Shamar Stewart back this week, though.
They do. Yeah, he practiced full. Also, we'll get Dylan Fairchild, their starting left guard. He'll face Cam Hayward. Fairchild missed the Packers game. And Amarius Mims, I know you asked about that on the Monday show. He was full, so I assume he will play, and this offensive line will be generally and largely healthy for the Steelers.
And I guess Gesicki, we'll have to see what happens. We'll ask.
He's out. I think he's already been ruled out.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure a multi-week injury there. And we'll ask Jay maybe about it, but if Hendrickson is a potential trade chip, which you have to imagine teams are calling about Hendrickson, pass rush needy teams, will the Bengals press and try to play him knowing he could be traded here in a week or two?
That's another thing to look at, especially if they lose this game against the Steelers.
Yeah, but would he even play for the Steelers game? If they say, hey, he's not that healthy, he may be traded, let's just give him some rest and we'll see what week 8 brings. So we'll talk to Jay here and get his perspective. All right, Dave, Arthur Smith, Teryl Austin speaking on Tuesday. Everything pushed up because of the Thursday game. Obviously, as usual, nothing crazy these guys are saying. Another Alexander the Great reference from Arthur Smith. I can't tell if he loves history or just knows Alexander the Great and just will name drop him at every opportunity. But Teryl Austin had a couple interesting comments and really a lot of praise for Patrick Queen, who's playing his best football of his 2-year Steelers tenure. And we talked about that on the Monday show. Patrick Queen has taken his game to a different level.
Yeah, he says, I think he's he's just really coming along, man. He's been playing well. I think there's a comfort level now in this defense. I think there is. Being the green dot, he and I are always talking, and he feels really comfortable about doing the job and doing the task at hand. So he's playing really fast right now, and that's one thing I think that we pointed out the other day in the last 2 games. He really seems to be moving a lot faster. He says it really shows. I think you watched last week and the week before. I mean, he just kind of jumps off the film at you in terms of his speed and violence. We need that. That's why we got him. It's good to see that he's really starting to feel comfortable and confident in that regard. He's always been a confident player, but now but you know how it is. Sometimes you get into a new system, it takes you really a while to get feet on the ground and going. He's got it going right now, and as far as the last 2 games go, it really has seemed to be just as Teryl Austin stated.
He's playing great and really settling in. So that was the question. Could Queen wear the green dot and be an effective player? That was the question in Baltimore, and his play got better once Roquan Smith came over, and Smith assumed the green dot hub of communication duties, and we saw Queen not play his best football last year, and it was hard to tell. Was that because he was picking up a new system, and Pittsburgh just the newness of it all? And this year would kind of be the real telling mark of, well, who is Patrick Queen, and we're seeing a really good version of him right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's he's got a trust factor, and a lot of those questions I think yes they were about Patrick Queen.
Steelers defense is healthy, which means they can be more creative and employ that 3 outside linebacker, what I believe they referred to in the past as the Bronco package of Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, and Nick Herbig, and Teryl Austin. Certainly enjoying that and the chess piece that Herbig can be. Talked about him, facing some of these guards. And I've had mixed feelings on Herbig over the guard because of the size disadvantage, but Herbig's athleticism and quickness. And I got to post a cut up, and maybe you did already, Dave. I'll retweet it if so. But that cross chop Nick Herbig has was working so well in this game against tackles and guards. It was really effective and made Herbig dominant and getting pressure from the inside and outside.
And just to get off into speed, he's so what's the word Yinzers use? Slippy.
Yeah, there you go.
He is just wherever he lines up, man. He's just so slippy, and he can get in between the guard and tackles real quick. Even when they try to account for him and know he's coming up the middle. And once again, he had 2 sacks in that game against the Browns. He was just half, maybe a 0.25 seconds away from having a couple of more, or at least impacting the quarterback with Dylan Gabriel. And I know there's been a lot of talk about Alex Highsmith, and does Herbig need to play more snaps than Highsmith, and does Highsmith need to be traded? I mean, why would you if you can afford it, unless you got anything really massive as far as trade capital back for Alex Highsmith. I just don't know why you'd want to move away from having those 3 to be able to have the ability to do what you do with those 3 guys on the field at the same time, and to be able to rotate those guys in when you only have 2 on the field. Because Highsmith is no slouch. He's just getting overshadowed right now, and especially with him having the time off the field and Herbig taking advantage of the extra playing time and producing like he's been producing. I understand we live in a Madden world, and anytime you get any kind of piece that you think you might consider more depth than you do starter, trying to trade it away, but having this really just speaks in general as a whole. Another thing that I pointed out yesterday on Twitter was, and I think we did on the podcast the other day as well too. Man, you finally got that whole complement of defense on the field together that in this game against the Browns that you hadn't had for the entire season. Harmon missed the first couple of games. Obviously, Highsmith and Deshaun Elliott went down early, as did Porter.
Herbig missed week 1.
Yeah, Herbig missed time, and then now, and you even supposedly had a banged up Ramsey going into this last game against the Browns, and he was even able to play through it and a high percentage of snaps. And now you got all those pieces of the puzzle that you wanted to have. finally available to you week 5, week 6 and all. And I think you're starting to see the benefits of it. And then even, I think this gives the Steelers a little bit of advantage going in on a short week because you can mix and match, some of these personnel groupings and packages and move people around against a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco, who's only going to be making his second start with his new team and on a short week at that. It really is kind of an advantage, Steelers heavy advantage at that, I think, especially. And I think Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin was kind of asked about blitz rates and being able to dial up the pressure more so this year than he has in previous years.
Right. He said that may be a factor, but he's not blitzing just to blitz. He's just putting guys in positions to succeed and doing whatever is best for the defense. He had a how do you do kind of kids reference here. He says, quote, "My job is to try to do what we're good at and what our guys are good at to get the most out of them, not what I think is cool and good." And so it would be cool to do all the high blitz stuff that some defenses do. And Pittsburgh is blitzing more this season, but our charting shows it's not an incredible jump from last year. At least it wasn't before the Browns game. So coaching can be simple. And to me, the literal baseline foundational definition of coaching is put players in position to succeed. If you're doing that, you're doing your job. If you aren't, you aren't. And I think Teryl Austin is.
And if you have the quality of defensive players, it makes you look like a much better defensive coordinator as well, too. We're basically go get them, boys. That's the play call,
Right.
because they. Look, I was worried about this defensive line going into the season. You got a rookie coming in there and Harmon trying to cut his teeth. Obviously, the same goes for Y.A. Black as well. But Harmon surely, and Austin was asked about Harmon as well too. And I think Harmon is getting his feet underneath him quickly, and he's impacting things. I think Keanu Benton's played a little better these last couple of games up front, specifically against the run. And even when you have guys out there like Daniel Aquale, how many times have we kind of slid in his name, even though he's not played a lot of snaps? But that guy can play against the run specifically, and he can get those arms extended and hold his gap, which is really the middle of the spine of the defense here. So they're getting good contributions from not only their starters but from their depth guys. And I don't want to, Mike Tomlin mentioned a whole historical defense and all like that. I'm not ready to go there yet, but you are starting. Mike Tomlin talked about this the other day. Is look, you're starting to see what I saw here ahead of the season, and once again, we really only have one game against the Browns to go by, and it was against a rookie quarterback and all like that. But now's the time to start showing through these next stretch of games that you are trending more towards that historical defense, and you better do it on Thursday night against a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco, and they'll have the opportunity to do it, and they'll face some good wide receivers, great wide receivers over there, probably the best top two at least in that they faced so far this season here. So yeah, I think overall, Teryl Austin with getting these guys back and be able to move guys around and put them in position to win. I think he's done that specifically against the Browns, and we'll see if he can do it again on Thursday night against the Bengals.
Moving on to Arthur Smith now, and of course it was a very tight end-centric conversation as it has been for the last couple of weeks. More Darnell Washington, Spencer Anderson, that sixth offensive lineman, the lack of Pat Freiermuth, the playmaking from Connor Hayward catching that touchdown. So again, not a lot of new ground here, just kind of the same answers in slightly different ways because it's been basically the same line of questioning, but Arthur Smith praising the selflessness of the entire room. Guys like Freiermuth not involved. We'll see if he gets his opportunity against the Bengals on Thursday, but just likes the room, the chess pieces, and the variety of skill sets.
Yeah, I like what he had to say about the development of Darnell Washington and what has stood out with him. He's talked about the subtle stuff with him, like the footwork and the hand placement. So he said sometimes when you're the biggest, strongest guy out there in high school, depending what they ask you to do or college, those games within the games, every snap you're going against really good players. It's not just about brute force sometimes because the guys guys are so good with their hands, just to leverage in subtle nuances, the picture change, all the little thing. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but he's very impressed with the subtle improvements that Darnell has made in his areas of the game. And look, I mean, that's obviously stood out on tape. The Steelers have really leaned into Darnell being on the field more, along with Spencer Anderson being a tackle or tight end eligible as well in this thing here. And you really would expect this to continue this week. And guys like Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth are probably going to once again, at least against this 4-down front against the Bengals here, and the things you expect them to run, kind of going to have probably a little bit muted participation. Although Pat Freiermuth pointed out this, everybody's forgetting about Pat Freiermuth at this time, and we've talked about this in the past. Pat Freiermuth has had some of his better games of his NFL career against the Bengals.
He has, including last year. I think he had a touchdown in both of those games, or at least the first one, the shootout victory, 44-38. And remember that first game after Matt Canada got fired, came against the Bengals, and Freiermuth made plays in that one. So hopefully that continues. Arthur Smith pointed out, though, it's a new DC over there in Al Golden, so it's not Lou Anarumo. And so schematically, will you see some different things that may mitigate some of Freiermuth's success or that he's had in the past and hurt those numbers this time around? We'll see. But if there's a game to get right, you would think it'll be the Bengals for Freiermuth.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a couple of young guys, at inside linebacker and middle linebacker for them as well, too. A little less of their veteran and Logan Wilson being on the field. And they were even able to use Freiermuth against guys like Logan Wilson in the past to get some of that zone. And I think a lot of what you're seeing on tape from the Bengals, and I talked with Jay a little bit about this earlier this morning as well, too, was the fact that they're playing a lot of middle of the field close, a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 1 type situations there, and they're trying to keep a lid on things. So if the play action is one thing Jay pointed out as well too, was play action. It could kind of work with these with these linebackers. I'm getting into more Bengals game preview here, but long story short, just because the usage of Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith isn't what it was a couple of weeks ago there. These are still guys that you can get involved in the passing game, and specifically against a team like the Bengals, perhaps.
Sure. We'll see if it's his time this week. I still think Water will find its level and Freiermuth will have his game. That's essentially what Mike Tomlin had to say Monday, but he also mentioned it's a big people game against a 4-3 front where there could be more of Darnell Washington, Spencer Anderson, because that has been working swimmingly so far. And just last thing on Washington, what you said, I think his snap timing's gotten a lot better. I thought he was too slow off the ball as a rookie. I think he's been quicker and more explosive. And then as Smith said, the nuances in footwork, which it impacts snap timing and your get off and hand placement. It's easy for Washington to just be a big guy because he's big and strong. And as Smith said, that can get you by on its own pretty much in the high school level, obviously. And even in college at Georgia, you're still going against a lot of guys who won't be in the NFL or fringe type of players. And so for Washington to really work his craft, I think his run blocking has really taken big steps forward last year and continued into this year. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's becoming a master of your craft, and Washington has.
I just cracked myself up. And,
I heard you.
And I do that kind of I do that. If you know me, I do that a lot these days. I'll get in here and I have tears coming out of my eyes.
What was this, the voices in your head? What's going on?
Yeah, basically. Well, actually, J.J. Watt's voice in my head. We didn't talk about this the other day. We were rushing things along, recapping the Browns game. How great were Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt calling that game for CBS, and specifically when they were talking about Darnell Washington and Ian Eagle started off by asking how J.J. Watt was originally listed on the roster and if that ever changed. And J.J. went right into, well, what's Darnell listed at? And I think Eagle said 6'7", 262, and J.J. fired back, that's not right. And the funniest line out of all this, I don't know why I had tears coming out of my eyes. Iron Eagle asked JJ Watt, "What do you work at a carnival?" And that just I couldn't help but think we're talking about Darnell there. This is a large human right now, and he is not 262. But the thing is that I don't want to go as far as saying the Patrick Queen of the Steelers offense, but he's playing faster. He's more settled in what his role is. He knows what he's supposed to do, and that has translated to him playing faster. And then when you talk about just the technique and the little things that he's getting better with, this is what has made this guy a four. And then they're using him in the passing game.
Mhm.
And man, Aaron Rodgers had an opportunity to hit him on kind of an out flag route, if you will, in that game against the Packers, and Darnell had the separation there, and that's a throw that Aaron Rodgers has to make.
He threw it high, which is hard to do over a 6'7" Darnell Washington. You're right. There is, I think, an analogy to Patrick Quinn because I think Washington made his jump last year. I think he's gotten better this year, but the big jump was that rookie to sophomore year, which is typical for those guys. I think especially tight ends because it's a tough position, I think, to transition to at the NFL level, even though Washington was more refined and more NFL ready because he was that inline blocker in college. And so I think that second year, whether you're a veteran on a new team like Queen or a rookie going to your sophomore season, you see that progression. And, for all the talk about move this guy to offensive tackle, and you go watch this guy catch and make plays in the pass game. I don't want to keep that guy. I don't want to put that guy at offensive tackle. I want to let that guy be an asset in the passing game. So maybe there's a conversation way down the road when he's 30 years old about offensive tackle. I still have my questions and my reservations about that. But for now, I like him being that big tight end too, because it is so unique. It's such an advantage that most teams simply do not have, that oversized tight end that can run block like a tackle. And I want to keep that there because I think it gives Pittsburgh a distinct leg up on everybody else. And you're seeing that the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and look, obviously because the amount of snaps last couple of weeks and used to Spencer Anderson and a lot of talk, or at least people were trying to build talking points around. Does this mean Darnell Washington's tight end one? What would you say to the people that say, well, this obviously means Darnell Washington's tight end one now?
I think Pittsburgh has a lot of tight ends they like, 3 starting caliber tight ends, and they're going to use them to their schematic advantages in games where you're facing 4-3 people and you got to run the ball. You're going to use Washington the way that Pittsburgh has against Minnesota and Cleveland, and probably should have done so more earlier in the season too when the run game was flailing. I think there'll be certainly time where Smith will get his and Frymouth will get his. So it's all a committee approach. It's all situational. It's all circumstance. It's all game plan dependent. So, in snap count right now, Washington has been that tight end one, but I'm less concerned about who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. It's more about what are your skill sets? How can Pittsburgh smartly utilize all 3? The whole reason why you have all these tight ends is to lean on their skill sets. And again, we talked about earlier, putting players in position to succeed. You're asking Washington to do things that Frymouth's going to struggle to do, and that's fine. That's how coaching works. So people can talk about depth charts and who's first and all that kind of stuff. I just care about the skill sets and guys playing well. I think the group is playing really well.
I agree. All right, what else did Arthur say that stuck out to you?
A lot of love for Spencer Anderson, too. He kind of gets not lost in the conversation of Washington. It's kind of been lumped together. It's Washington and Anderson, but Anderson has played well. Talked about him out that one check down to Kenneth Gainwell, which I don't know if was designed. Smith, I think, seemed to intimate it wasn't really designed, but kind of a check down block in space. Kind of a funky call there, kind of cool. But, Anderson's done a nice job. They're impressed with him. I know we had the conversation about who's replacing Malu next year, assuming Malu does not return. Maybe there's more confidence in giving Anderson that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there just yet, but I will say this: he's obviously gotten a lot more comfortable in having to play that jumbo eligible player here. You got a couple of games under your belt doing that more heavily now. Not like he hasn't done it before, but man, you definitely got to lean into that. Yeah, has he had his hiccups occasionally here in the last couple of weeks? Yes, but I think overall, him and Darnell Washington are one of the major reasons why this offense has looked a little bit better these last couple of weeks as well too. And there's no reason to think against the Bengals 4 down front, especially with a banged up Trey Hendrickson, that we won't see basically and a short week to boot, where you're probably not going to change up a lot of what you've done the last couple of weeks. We're going to see Spencer Anderson on the field in 13, 14 plays as eligible, and Darnell Washington on the field probably 45, maybe even a few more, depending on how the game flows, of snaps on the field. Why would you not want to lean into that more?
Right. Running the ball is paramount. It is the goal of Pittsburgh's offense every single game. And so the first, riddle to solve is how do we run the ball this week? And that's bringing in big people. And that's what you got to do. It becomes at the expense of others, then so be it. Because obviously it's working. You've gotten some really good offensive results the last two games against Minnesota and against Cleveland. That'll be the strategy, I think, against Cincinnati. So yeah, with Anderson, I mean, it's obviously, playing tackle eligible and playing starting left guard are different tasks, and you're facing maybe some smaller guys out there on the edge. And can he hold up as well as a left guard over the course of a season? I don't think he looked very good last year. They basically were turning towards McCormick by the end of that 4-week stretch until Malu returns. So I don't know if he's the guy going forward, but I think they certainly like what Anderson's doing right now.
Absolutely, especially in the role and what he's been asked to do specifically the last two games.
All right, Dave, to go back to this Browns game, to review the All-22 tape again, we're trying to cram everything in here in this Thursday turnaround. So just give us your thoughts on the Steelers offense after watching the All-22. Any different thoughts or opinions, or did it kind of reaffirm what you saw live?
Well, I think the main takeaway on offense, and this has been a talking point, obviously, on social media and in our comments, and you did a video on this as well too. The Steelers, however you want to frame it, they did a masterful job of not allowing Myles Garrett to be a game wrecker on Sunday in that game, and they did so in a lot of various different ways there. We talked the other day about moving Aaron Rodgers away from Garrett on some design rollouts, but it's not like you did that every play. You gave Garrett, and look, everything that they did wasn't a huge secret. It's what teams try to do every week against Myles Garrett and kind of diminish the impact he can have on games. The thing is that the Steelers just really did a good job of what other teams tried to do. You had a lot of times over there where Broderick Jones and Isaac Seumalo were both on Garrett. You had times where look on that extended play we talked about the other day, Jaylen Warren blocking, getting a piece of Myles Garrett and almost putting him on his butt before leaking out, and giving Aaron Rodgers an option there. You had the tight ends and the running backs trying to chip when they could, and then the other aspect of it is what we had seen through the first several games of the Steelers anyway, and that's Aaron Rodgers getting the football out of his hand quickly and not allowing Garrett to impact the game that way. Now, what seems to be the talk, or at least some of the talk that I'm seeing, is, boy, what a great game Broderick Jones played. And I was careful when I talked about this the other day because I wanted to dig deeper into the tape. I think Broderick Jones played, pound for pound and okay game. But I think what the Steelers did schematically to try to take away Myles Garrett's effectiveness in this game was a bigger component aspect of this game than it was just the one-for-one play for Broderick Jones. So, and look, Pro Football Focus, whatever people think about it, mostly people who listen to this show and generally on social media are negative to Pro Football Focus. I get it. I still struggle with a lot of the grades and all like that. I did think that their pushback on Myles Garrett's grade and effectiveness in this game was a little strong, at least from some of the interviews that I saw in there overall. But my main takeaway here is that the Steelers did a good job in game planning overall for Garrett with several different things. And yeah, I think in certain instances, I thought Broderick Jones did handle some one-on-one snaps fine, but there were a couple other plays where I didn't think he did. And look, there were only 10 what they call 10 true pass sets in this game. And basically what that does is throws out any play action plays, any quick pass situations where the ball's out quick, moving the quarterback away from a defender and all like that. So you they just did such a good job of game planning and executing to take Myles Garrett away from some of the things that that make him impactful. And I thought that was the overarching thing. That combined with the Steelers being able to run the ball a little bit more effectively in this game in certain situations was the biggest component of this thing offensively.
And that's no shade to Broderick, and I know you're not putting any towards him. I mean, of course you're going to give help. You'd be crazy not to be yelling at this coaching staff if they left Jones on an island all game and didn't try to do a bunch of different things to take Garrett away. So it was about winning matchups, and that was my takeaway talking about the game on Monday, and it's still my takeaway now. It's the matchup of taking away Garrett through slide protection to that side and chips by tight ends and by running backs, and having those kind of that empty set. We have those chippers from the tight end or the running back to help combat some of the wide nine stuff that Jim Schwartz and the Browns defense likes to do. Slow down Garrett before he gets going and move in the pocket and rolling to the right and running the ball and staying on schedule and all the things I broke down in my video. So yeah, I mean that is what you're supposed to do, and most teams try it. Every team tries it against Garrett, and a lot of teams struggle. And Pittsburgh did a great job in succeeding there and taking away, minimizing and muting Myles Garrett. And then the matchup of going after the new guy, Tyson Campbell, who catching the moving train in Cleveland. I just thought overall Pittsburgh stayed on schedule, played a clean game, and a really selfless game. Well, I mean, I think Pittsburgh's really playing a good team game, complementary football, but also just hand in the pile. You pointed out, that first completion to Washington was a great play call by Arthur Smith. But watch DK Metcalf just hustle his butt off downfield to try to throw a block. Didn't really impact the play. Kind of got in front of a player, but the effort is there. You see Austin block for Metcalf against Minnesota on his touchdown. You're seeing Metcalf do the same, for Washington against Cleveland. I just see a really selfless group of guys, and that's a really good sign.
Here's what I put out on Twitter, which caused a couple of waves. Obviously, every team attempts to do similar things against Garrett with various degrees of success/failure. Even though Rodgers does not have the mobility to contend with, as we have seen most of this season, he has a super quick time to throw time. Also, from 9:20 on in the third quarter and on, the Steelers only had 6 pass attempts the rest of the game, Alex, and 2 of those went for TDs. So you're only running 6 pass attempts from 9:20 on in the third quarter, and then within that, 2 of those went for TDs, which effectively put the game away. One of those, obviously, the rollout extended play that Rodgers hit Hayward in the back of the end zone on was a huge play moving away from Garrett, and the other one was that double moves sluggo by DK Metcalf, which you got the ball out pretty quick on that one as well too. So you really trimmed the game down from to basically almost a 2.5 quarter game when it came to Garrett.
Right, like I said, Pittsburgh played this game on their terms. I mentioned that Monday, and that's still my takeaway here. They ran the ball. They took away Garrett. They took away the Browns. The Browns' best players on defense are Denzel Ward at corner and Myles Garrett off the edge. And both those guys were really non-factors in this one. They threw away from Ward generally, and they minimized Garrett in all the ways that we just talked about. So you do those things. You take away those top playmakers, force the other guys to make plays. Browns have a good defense. It's a good group overall, but you take away those stars. You play the game on your terms. That's a winning formula.
All right, here's something else I put out there that caused some waves. Got a lot of pushback. A lot of people say I should watch the game.
What's the pushback? I don't even know what's the controversy of your statement.
At this point, nothing has really changed regarding Broderick Jones past 2025. As of right now, 5th-year option will likely be declined. The team very likely needs to think long and hard about their 2026 starting left tackle at this point, either free agency or gulp the draft again. Do you take any issue with what I've said at this point through 5 games? Has anything really changed regarding Broderick Jones based off of specifically this game against the Browns?
I mean, one game's not going to change my feeling unless it's a disaster, but it might just further it. I think Jones is still not cemented himself and far from it as that long-term option. My level of confidence is not yet really gotten really high on Broderick Jones' ability to be a premier stud left tackle. Still a lot of work technically to go, but there's been progression there. And so the good thing, I always say these things this time of year, the good thing is you got the rest of the season to figure this thing out. You got a couple tough matchups with potentially Hendrickson, and if not him, then you're going to see Parsons and Gary, and you'll see Garrett again later this year, and Hendrickson, assuming he stays a Bengal, later this year, and Van Noy and the Ravens. So These are all questions to better answer once the season ends, but I agree that Jones' performance, because he got so much help, doesn't mean that, okay, now he's the guy at left tackle and go sign this guy and you're good to go. There's still a lot he has to do and a lot more for us to watch before making those decisions.
And the good thing is you got still 3/4 of the season left to change my mind,
Right.
but nothing. My point was that even though I thought he played okay against the Browns and all like that, this team was able to limit Myles Garrett to 2 assisted tackles in this game. Nothing in my mind has changed regarding Roderick Jones at this point from what I've seen through 5 games. Now, am I open to changing my mind if I see it on tape? Absolutely, but it's just amazing how much pushback I got on that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. My mind isn't changed because I know how much help the Pittsburgh gave Jones, as they should. That's no slight to Jones at all. So we'll see. We'll keep watching.
All right, what was it? You did a video on this on how they minimized Garrett. We just covered a lot of it overall there. Was there anything else kind of specifically that really stood out?
No, when it comes to how they took away Garrett, there is no secret. Pittsburgh didn't do anything unique. They just did it better and more effectively, and that's the name of the game when you're facing some of these stars. It's side protection, it's chip, it's running the ball, staying on schedule, moving the launch point some, knowing to take your spots on play action, and some of those vertical opportunities. So you combine all those things, you play with the lead. Pittsburgh never trailed in this game. That's the recipe.
All right, what did you like from the offense in the running game?
I thought one guy that had a really good game that I didn't really shout out as much as I probably should have, that I saw more on the All-22 was Zach Frazier. I thought he maybe had the best game of his season in terms of his grip strength and run blocking. Maybe he's not been. You wouldn't expect him to make a giant leap because he was more refined and finished than a lot of rookie linemen are coming out of college. But I thought he had a really good game in this one, and just overall the run defense the run offense was, and the run game was coordinated, and combo blocks were good, and Jalen Warren ran hard, and they just were a good unit.
Yeah, we saw the guards on the move. Couple of traps, had some success on that too. But you agree, there's still meat on the bone there, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I mean, the Browns are a tough run defense, so I didn't expect 200 yards and 5.5 yards per carry. I think Pittsburgh's 100 yards, and whenever they got yards per carry, 4 yards a pop or so is exactly what you were looking for. But the scheme was great. They ran some of those. I don't know if it was like wham blocks or crunch. I don't know exactly how to define some of the scheme, but they were doing some funky stuff there with getting Frazier to the second level and some front side pulls with McCormick. So there were some fun run game wrinkles to kind of earhole that Browns 4-3 front and get some guys climbing to those linebackers.
Yeah, they were getting the tackles to pin a little bit, and then pulling the guards out to the same side as well. And that was that produced some runs.
Right. So it was a good run scheme, good execution. I think Frazier had a really strong game. It would be his best game of the year. Good plan to take away Garrett. And then pass game, nothing too crazy. You got the ball to Metcalf. You picked on Campbell, the new guy over there. You made some plays. Happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good yards after the catch again. Overall, I think not as high a percentage as we've seen, and obviously we talked about the other on Monday there, as we saw Aaron Rodgers register his highest target depth, down the field depth, and then highest completed target depth as well too.
And for the season, your favorite stat, his adjusted net yards per passing attempt is 6.95, which is a very healthy number and going in the right direction.
That might as well be 9.95 compared to what we've seen the last couple of seasons here. But it's going in the right direction there. And they're look. Do I think we're going to see a repeat of them pushing the football down the field, potentially against the Bengals and the style of defense that they play? Probably not, but at least it is moving in the right direction there. And I think we just, it goes to show that if they do get the one-on-one matchups out there that they like, that they're not going to be afraid to take the shots. And we saw it obviously on the double move with the slugger on DK. You tried to take the other deep shot down the field to DK that hung up and obviously underthrown. That could have been a touchdown there. This team's probably going to be without Calvin Austin this week as well too, so that's probably going to mute you in the deeper passing game on top of it. But at least it is moving a little bit in the right direction there.
Right. All right. Flipping over to the Steelers defense, Dave, obviously a really dominant performance, kept Cleveland out of the end zone, held them to 9 points. What did you see?
Man, we talked a lot about it already. Patrick Queen really, really playing fast. I think that was a key component to this. I thought the defensive front and why the Browns didn't try to come out maybe and exert a little bit more effort to get that running game going. I don't know why, but I just thought pound for pound the Steelers up front and Benton included within this. I thought they did a very, very good job of filling gaps and not allowing the big runs. Look, the Browns really struggled creating any of those 10, they, uh, I don't even think did they have a 10+ yard run in this game? I don't think
I think Ford had a 12-yard run
okay.
left side.
And I think that was their longest run play of the game. I think that might have been the only one over 12 yards. And I don't think I think they had a couple of 19-yard plays in this game, but the Steelers rallied to the football quick once again. They were able to get pressure on Dylan Gabriel in various different ways. Sometimes with four guys, sometimes bringing the blitz and all like that. Obviously Ramsey surprised him off the corner on one of these there. Just a very constricted pocket as well too that didn't allow for Dylan Gabriel to get a lot of yards with his legs if he did break initial containment there. And they kept the lid on things overall, and they got fortunate on a couple of those penalties. One I think was offsetting one with Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr. had a nice pass breakup. Darius Slay had a contested catch, I think, on the right side one time. You had the ball up in the air a couple of times where there were some interceptable balls. Gabriel, while I thought Gabriel played well overall, his receivers that hit. I can't help but go back. And one thing that Joe Hayden mentioned talking about to James Harrison on their podcast was those hits adding up. And I think I noted this the other day too from the first hit on Njoku, which I think came around midway second quarter or whatnot. It seemed like the whole complexion of the game changed when it came to eligibles running towards the middle of the field trying to make catches. I think Njoku and Fannin had drops. You had the one young wide receiver down low red zone get doinked right in the helmet because I think he's listening for footsteps. And anytime those guys did kind of catch passes over the middle of the field, they essentially paid for it as well too. So I think you saw the physicality of that Steelers defense, and Austin talked about it. Just the violence that Patrick Queen played with. Not only was he coming downhill making tackles, he's trying to rip the football out as well too. It's surprising that the Steelers didn't come out of this game with a turnover, and the game would have been perhaps even more lopsided had they had. But the run defense was on point. They were getting pressure. They were able to get pressure whatever way they deemed necessary. I thought up front in the middle they played really well. Once again, that's another thing I pointed out. Aquale was on the field for 11 snaps, I think, in total, and those 11 snaps equated to, I think, 11 snaps for Daniel Aquale. And look, this wasn't all Daniel Aquale, and I'm not trying to paint that way, but it's just the little things that kind of jump out for you, especially when you get this game charting back and you start matching it to what you see on tape there. Aquale played 11 snaps versus the Browns, and Cleveland had -2 yards on those 11 plays. Two of those plays were sacks by the Steelers defense. Obviously, Aquale didn't have either one of those. And 3 of those 11 plays were run plays as well too. So you didn't have any, you didn't go backwards when you're bringing in a guy like Aquale on the field. And I thought another interesting thing that jumped out. Man, I love the way that you do your charting because it makes it so simple here. Watt, Hayward, and Harmon. And this is a positive, even though it might sound like a negative. They were all on the field together for just 10 plays versus the Browns. We already talked about how from what was it 10:30 left in the fourth quarter that Watt and Hayward weren't on the field, weren't in the game. So that's going to play into this as well too. They were Harmon Hayward and Watt were on the field together for 10 plays versus the Browns, not counting, I think there was one no play in there. Those 10 plays resulted in just 17 yards gained, 1.7 yards per play in those situations when those three guys were on the field. So, that's something to hang your hat on moving forward as well too. So when their core guys are on the field, this defense was humming against the Browns. And now you got to, going back to what I said about, Austin and Mike Tomlin talking about historic defense. There is a lot to like about having all these guys back healthy and on the field together. And this better pay dividends on Thursday night against the Bengals, especially against a suspect offensive line and a veteran quarterback that's not mobile, and Joe Flacco that's going to just be making his second start.
Sure, but even as you said, the depth did their job too. McQualey did well with his rotational snaps when they took Watt and Hayward and Ramsey and Elliott out of the game late. The defense still held firm, kept the Browns out of the end zone. So it was a team wide thing. I think it was just a really strong performance. To me, David starts with the run defense, and the run defense as a team was excellent. I think Derek Harmon was immovable against the run. I mean, they could not move this guy off of his spot. Harmon was great against the run. He got a really bad PFF grade. I don't understand for the life of me how he was graded so poorly. I know we don't care a lot about PFF grades, so take all of that with a grain of salt. Maybe because he didn't finish with some tackles, but he was two gapping, he was staying clean, forced the running back to cut, he's spilling runs. I mean, he was really, really good in this one. It was the best of Harmon in terms of stopping the run that I've seen from him in his short 3-game NFL career. But team run defense with linebackers filling, being aggressive, Holcomb, Queen, Watt on the edge, Aquale, just good tackling, gap sound. You had to stop the run in this one, take away Judkins, and Pittsburgh absolutely did.
Yeah, where they really gigged him, and not that people like us drilling down PFF grades, but I'm going to try to here. Harmon played 48 snaps in this game. 12 were on run defense. Okay. 12 were against the run, 35 in pass rush, and 1 in coverage there. His run defense was 35.7 on those 12 plays. They have him as a tackling grade of 25.6, which also dinged him, and they have him down for 2 missed tackles. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say those 2 missed tackles on the 12 run plays is what really dinged his score the most, specifically against the run. That's the only way that. Now, as far as plays that that not involving missed tackles and all like that, if indeed that's just his run defense score, I thought he played much better than that, because like you said, a lot of times it's not you being actually involved in the tackle of the play. It's just you maintaining your gap and allowing these linebackers to run loose and do what they need to do.
Yeah, if you spill a run wide and keep the running back lateral, yeah, you don't get the tackle for it, but you made the play. You kept the running back from hitting the hole, and kept them down the track and kept them wide. Let someone else go make the play. That's the job of a Steelers defensive lineman, and it has been for 30, 40 years now. So I thought Harmon was really good. The pass rush was kind of minimal. I know we had like a couple of half sacks they split with him, but the run defense was excellent. And to go back to what you said earlier, you're right. Those Browns receivers, they heard footsteps in this one, and that is hard to do in today's NFL with all the rules that make it so hard to hit these guys. Such a small strike zone. Receivers feel a little more confident going over the middle than they did in a past era. But some of those early hits, I think those Browns receivers were thinking about that later in the game.
Otomewo, who we talked about here, they scored him worse than Harmon, and I thought Otomewo. I thought he used his arms and all very well, and obviously this team was played to run well, and once again he only played 10, I think, official snaps, 11 in totality there. Once again it goes into. Look, we use PFF once again, and we pass along the grades everybody to bitch and fuss about because they cause such a stink and all like that. We don't use them as a Bible there. I think PFF does a lot of things really, really well. Obviously, a lot of people, and they should, you don't fully understand the grading, and it's not like they go through each player and lay out why this grade was at. But yeah, it is easy to take issue with their grades.
Right, but putting PFF aside, really good defense, and that's obvious to anyone who watched the game. Herbig continues to be impactful. Talked about his cross chop earlier, his quickness,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
just
I meant Aquale, not Otamawo. Aquale, they actually
okay.
graded. I was looking at one, thinking about the other there. I talked about Aquale. So Otamawo, I did not focus in on him to know in his 10 snaps how he played, but they actually did. My apologies. They actually did grade Aquale good in this one.
Okay,
Very,
as they
very,
should.
very good. Yeah.
Yeah, Oto Meywa played a bunch of snaps in that final drive there, a lot of pass rush stuff, but good for him to get some work in and get his feet wet after being inactive until this game. But yeah, the outside linebackers, Alex Highsmith played well. He's not chopped liver here too to Herbig and TJ Watt. He had 3 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, a half sack. Don't forget about this guy. Now everyone's trying to push him out the door and go trade him to Philadelphia or wherever, but I think Pittsburgh likes all the guys they have and the flexibility it creates, and happy to see that. Jack Sawyer also had a couple nice rushes. His snap timing was good late in this game.
All right, I apologize once again. I was thinking Aquale and looking at Otamawo for some reason, and so that's why I popped out the grade on that. But they graded Aquale 70.5, and yeah, that equals up in what the tape showed on those 11 snaps.
And Benton played well. The Benton concerns have quieted down a lot, haven't they? When you play good run defense as a team, stop the run, everyone stops talking about moving Keanu Benton or saying whatever they were saying about him.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts here defensively, Dave?
No. Just gonna be interested to see how they utilize this defense in man versus zone, I think, and I guess that kind of segues us into starting to talk about the upcoming game against the Bengals.
Yeah, before we get into our own thoughts here, Dave, let's talk to our friend Jay Morrison, who covers the Bengals for BengalsTalk.com. You can follow him, and you should follow him on Twitter at BYJ Morrison. It's going to be just Dave talking with Jay. My internet went out earlier in the show, so I was without for a little bit. I was in the dark ages, and so Dave talks to Jay. We'll take a pause and come back with that conversation.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Today is Wednesday, and with the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday night this week, we're bumping things up, and today is the day where we have the opposing beat writer who covers the Steelers opposition in to help us preview the game. And with it being the Bengals this week, I am, of course, talking about the great Jay Morrison. You've heard him on this show several times. Jay covers the Bengals for BengalsTalk.com, and that is under the Sports Illustrated umbrella of sites there. He has covered the Bengals for quite a while. He is a Ohio U grad. He is a Mullet alumnus as well, too. He's a hard rock aficionado, concert. He's a man after my own heart. I think we probably listened to a lot of the same music and went to the same concerts over the years as well, too. So with that long introduction out of the way, and you can follow him on Twitter at @ByJMorrison. Jay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast, and sorry Alex could not be with us today.
No, hey, Dave, it's good to be back. It's funny. You mentioned I've covered the team for a long time. I've covered the team for so long that this doesn't feel like a battle of old quarterbacks at 41 and 40, Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco. I would kill to be 41 again.
I would as well too. It's I think about 17 years in my rearview mirror back then, but not that I could have played quarterback in the NFL at that age as well. Look, the Icy Hot Bowl is what it's starting to be called here with Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers. Let's start with the older elephant in the room, if you will, with Joe Flacco. That trade caught a lot of us off guard. Not so much that the Browns maybe traded Joe Flacco away. The fact that I think the most surprising aspect of Mike Tomlin had something to say about this a couple of days as well too was the fact that the Browns traded him to the Bengals. Do you think the Bengals were a bit surprised? Look, I mean, it never hurts to call, as the old saying goes there. But do you think they were a little bit surprised that the Browns said, yeah, we'll let him go, and we'll let him go for basically pennies on a dollar?
Yeah, I think they were probably a little surprised by that. Zach Taylor was asked about it, and he said, well, I was happy that they decided to do it. He didn't want to go into whether they were surprised. He was a guy that the Bengals targeted. It was obvious they needed to make a move, and you've got guys like a lot of people were talking about Jameis Winston and guys like that were backups elsewhere, but haven't played in a while, and that was a big deal for the Bengals. They wanted somebody that had played recently, and Joe Flacco obviously had. He started 4 games. Yeah, he got benched, so that's not an ideal situation, but, um, getting someone that had the reps in this season was big, and I think, we saw it play out, that he was the whole offense was really sluggish in the first half, but it felt like things really clicked in the second half of that Green Bay game, and you see why he was a guy that they targeted. He got the ball out on time, he made smart decisions with the ball, he made some kinda wild throws with that big arm of his, and so it made sense for the Bengals. On the Browns side, it kinda makes sense too. You're looking to just get anything for him. They're gonna go with the 2 young rookies, and, my partner on our podcast, the Growler podcast, Paul Dehner Jr. brought it up too. Kind of an interesting thing here is, if Cleveland looks at the Steelers and says, "Hey, if they're not punting and giving up, and they think they have some sort of shot to get rolling and get something going, what better way than to trade a quarterback away that can help beat the Steelers with 2 games remaining, Bengals-Steelers games remaining?" So I don't know how much of that was in their thought process, but it might help explain a little bit of why they were willing to do it in division.
When you look at overall, obviously, the good thing for Flacco is he had previously played the Packers a couple of weeks prior to, and
Yep.
the Browns obviously won that game. Their defense obviously played a big part in that, but it made it a lot easier for Joe Flacco to prepare in that quick amount of time. And obviously, he's been around the league for a long time, and you expect a guy like that to come in and be able to grasp the offense quickly. I think even Jamar Chase talked about how quickly he had determination down, was reciting the
Mhm.
plays and all like that. What did you see in that game? You mentioned, and it was a slow start for them overall, but what did you see offensively that the Bengals were able to do uh, inside their norm and maybe a little outside the norm the further they got into that game against the Packers? Did it just seem like the normal offense, Joe Flacco just able to get the ball out quickly into the right spots overall? Is that what your main takeaway was there?
Yeah, that was a big part of it, but I think the one thing that was really interesting, and it started, the 4th straight game, they didn't score a touchdown in the first half, is that ties the franchise record. They put a drive together at the end of the half, and they went down, and Evan McPherson actually kicked a 67-yard field goal, which would have broke the NFL record, but Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay coach, got a timeout right before he kicked it, so it didn't count. But that drive started back close to their own goal line, and there was a toss sweep for 13 yards, and we have not seen this offense get any semblance of a running game going. I think their longest run all year had been 12 yards before that, and that was on a 3rd and long draw to Samaje Perine. So getting a little bit of a sign of life from Chase Brown in the running game on that toss sweep really kinda lit a bit of a fire under this Bengals offense, and even rookie guard Jalen Rivers was moving guys, and we hadn't really seen that. He took a step forward, and the offensive line was getting a push, and they kept going back to that toss sweep. I think 3 more times in the game they ran the toss sweep, and they were all for at least 5 yards. So I think they found a little something in the run game in addition to finding some competent quarterback play, and you marry those together, and I think that's why you're seeing the optimism. Nobody's talking about moral victories and staying close with the Packers and any of that, but there was some real optimism coming out of that game. That's a real Packers defense. Gary, Micah Parsons, they've got real dudes on that defense, and they found a way to move the ball, and they found a way to move the ball without being one-dimensional. I think that's given them a lot of optimism moving forward.
You go back to Flacco with the Colts last season and coming in off the bench to replace Richardson, and ended up beating the Steelers there. And the Steelers, played a lot of zone in that game, and Joe Flacco just ripped zones apart. And
Mhm.
I think if you go back and you look at the All-22 on the Packers, from what I saw against zone coverage against the Packers ended up playing a lot of zone against Flacco, and I think he completed something like 21 of 33 passes for 153 yards in there, and in man situations, I have him down for 6 of 10 for 56 yards and 1 touchdown and all like that. Basically, and the Steelers were able to play more man this year with the complement of players that they have on defense there. Is the smart thing, especially with those talented wide receivers there and knowing how Joe Flacco picks apart zone, would you suggest that the Steelers play more man in this game?
I think I would not. I just don't think it's a good idea to play man against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. If you're playing man and you get one of those guys one on one, this Bengals O line's not great. But if Joe Flacco can throw it up there and count on one of those guys to make a play, they're gonna hit some big ones. I think zone is the way to go. I don't know that they necessarily need to blitz a lot. This offensive line has not been great all year. Even Orlando Brown, a veteran, he's looked shaky at times, and Amarius Mims is now he left that game. The right tackle left that game with an ankle injury. He came back, but it's obviously something he's dealing with. And you could have two rookie guards starting if Dylan Fairchild's back. So I think just trying to get some pressure with the front four and sitting back in zone. The guys that kind of sit down in the zone and beat them, both of the Bengals tight ends, their pass catching tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson, they're not going to have in this game. Well, they put Gesicki on the IR earlier today. Tanner Hudson has been in concussion protocol, and I just can't see a player that got concussed in a Sunday game playing in a Thursday game. So that's going to be a big deal. You just don't have the guys that could kind of sit down there in the middle of those zones and take some pressure off of T and Jamar. So if I was the Steelers, I would stick with the zone plan against Flacco. He is good at ripping it, but this offense is going to be a little limited there.
All right, they're mostly 11 personnel team there. So with Gesicki now on IR and with Hudson banged up, I imagine Drew Sample and Noah Fant will be the one tight end on the field when they're in 11 personnel. So I expect that to carry over there. And do you think this team is going to? Do you think Fairchild's going to be at left guard when it's all said and done?
Yeah, it's interesting. I expect them to bring Lucas Patrick off of IR because he can also play center, and they don't really have a true backup center right now in case anything happens to Ted Karras. But it's been a different offensive line combination seemingly every week this year. There's been 5 of them already in 6 games. The way that they're just going overall and kind of going with the young guys, they benched Logan Wilson this week for rookie 4th round, or last week for rookie 4th round linebacker Barrett Carter. I just Dylan Fairchild hasn't been great, but I think if he's able to go, and he's been a full participant this week, it wouldn't surprise me to see them go back to the 2 rookie guards, Dylan Fairchild and Jalen Rivers, who was their 5th round pick this year. It just seems like they've kind of put the veterans on this team on notice that it's going bad. We're going to go with the youth movement. We're going to start getting these kids experience.
All right, on the defensive side of football and injury related here, the one that we're watching, I think, mostly is Trey Hendrickson here, right? Left the game against the Packers. I think they called it a back injury maybe initially, but I think he's on the injury report as a hip. And he listed, obviously, in estimated practice injury reports here as did not practice. If he's able to go, and do you think he's going to be able to go Thursday night? And if he does, they're probably going to have him on a pitch count. We're probably not going to see 100% Trey Hendrickson out there, right?
Right. I think they're going to do everything they can to get him ready. He wasn't at practice last night, but I assume they didn't want him doing rehab type of stuff on the field where it was in the public view. He was probably back at the indoor facility or in the indoor gym because they practiced in the stadium last night. So I think they're going to have him dressed in, maybe third downs or obvious pass situations, but they cannot get pressure anywhere else without Trey Hendrickson. Now they are getting a boost. Shamar Stewart, their 1st round pick, defensive end out of Texas A&M. He got hurt in the middle of the week 2 game, and he hasn't been on IR, but he's missed the last 4 games. They're getting him back, and they're expecting him to play a full role. So that will help, but this defense has struggled so much to get any kind of pressure outside of Trey Hendrickson. I think they almost have to dress him and just see what they can get from him. Maybe it starts low, maybe he starts feeling good, and they, whatever kind of pain shots they give him, he can expand that role. But I expect to see him out there.
When and if Hendrickson's not on the field, is Stewart going to be on that side replacing him?
They move him around and they put him inside a lot too. A lot of times on third down. Now that's when you have Trey, but a lot of times they would have Trey Hendrickson and Joseph Osai rushing off the edges, and they would let Shamar Stewart rush from inside at tackle. If Trey's not out there, then I do think you'll see them flip. Nobody else kind of really plays that only one side. So I think you'll see them move them around, start looking for some matchups. But you could also see them keep sticking with that and putting Shamar in on third down, and then you got Miles Murphy, their 2023 first-round pick, at one edge, opposite Osai.
Whoever is on that Trey Hendrickson side over there, the Steelers been running a lot of heavy personnel with Darnell Washington. They even been having Spencer Anderson eligible tight end a lot more these last few weeks. You have to lean on that side and just really see how Hendrickson and whoever else on that side over there enjoys jumbo package, right?
Yeah, I mean, just throw a bunch of guys at him, and then, maybe the combination of the frustration of not getting home and then whatever pain he's dealing with just becomes too much, and it's too much to fight through. But I don't. We saw it last year. What did Trey have? 3 sacks in the fourth quarter of that Week 18 game in Pittsburgh. I don't know why teams don't double Trey Hendrickson all the time, because he is just an animal out there.
Just quick sidebar here. Do you think Hendrickson might be somebody they think about moving here before the trade deadline if things don't go well the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they don't like to do it a lot. They don't like to punt, but if they see the ride, they're 2-4. They lose this game, they're 2-5, and then, you know, unlikely they would lose to the Jets. But if things do go south, I mean, that is a situation where we're seeing them go to the young guys and saying they're just kind of playing the long game. Trading Trey Hendrickson would definitely be in that realm of playing the long game.
All right, we're seeing a little bit of a changing of the guard at linebacker here. Les Logan Wilson, who I've got a lot of respect for, having watched him over the years and all. I guess more of a youth movement, right, with Carter and Knight. And what have been your thoughts so far on the play of both those guys?
Yeah, Demetrius Knight, I mean, he's been a rookie. He's had some flashes, and he's had some head scratching plays. And then we saw that from Barrett Carter too. Couple plays that really led to some big a touchdown for Green Bay, and then a big conversion where he wasn't in the right spot. It's head scratching because I get it where you want to see what the young guys can do, but Logan Wilson just got voted a captain for the first time in his career this year, and yes, he's lost a step, but this defense, they need that leadership out there, especially if Trey Hendrickson's not going to play. I'm really surprised that they made this move, and I almost wonder if it was make the move the week before the Steelers game just to get Barrett Carter's feet wet, and then hope that he settles down against the Steelers. But it felt like a panic move, and Logan Wilson's obviously not happy about it, and he's not going to do anything to harm Barrett Carter. He put his arm around him, he said, and told him, "I'm still here for you. I'm gonna pour everything I have into you. I still believe in you, and I'm gonna help you help this defense." But it's clear he's not happy about that, and maybe it's one of those things where it's just kind of a message to the locker room where none of your guys' jobs are safe, and we're gonna start bringing in the young guys and building this thing up that way if this keeps going like this. But again, Logan had knee injury last year, and he was slower this year, and I think they were hoping that he was gonna get back to the old Logan, and he just didn't see it. He was noticeably slower this year, and that was leading to some poor angles and some uncharacteristic missed tackles, and I think they just had enough that they wanted to go to the rookie, and Al Golden, the defense coordinator, even said it multiple times yesterday. We just wanted to see what would happen. It's not like they were convinced that Barrett Carter was gonna go in there and play better than Logan Wilson, but they felt like they needed a spark, and we'll see how it goes. It wasn't ideal last week against Green Bay. Maybe with a game under his belt, Barrett Carter plays a little bit better against Pittsburgh.
Obviously, last year a lot of consternation about the defense and all, and you already talked about they're having problems getting pressure, and obviously a banged up Hendrickson's not going to help with that. But on the secondary, a lot of familiar names still in there: Cam Taylor, Britt, Geno Stone, DJ Turner from a couple of years ago, Dax Hill. What are your overarching thoughts on the way the secondary has played? It seems like they're playing a lot of middle field closed, a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 1 with some cover 6 mixed in there. Just pretty much, trying to keep a lid on everything and rally to the ball underneath. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and it's worked. They haven't given up the explosives this year, but they've also not been able to get off the field. Their teams are converting third downs and just marching down the field on them. DJ Turner, both DJ Turner and Dax Hill were playing really good last year when they went down with season-ending injuries. Dax was early; it was week 5. DJ's was later in week 10 or 11. DJ's come back fantastic. He leads the league in PBUs. He is really playing well. Dax Hill is playing well also. Cam Taylor-Britt's been the issue. He's been benched in the middle of games several times going back to last year. They keep giving him another chance. It's got to the point where you have to wonder, when is enough enough? I don't it's one of those situations where linebacker, they felt like they had somebody that they could put in there. I don't think they feel like they have somebody that can be better than Cam Taylor-Britt, or they would have put him in there at this point. And the other thing with Cam is he's their most physical corner, and he's done really well against DK Metcalf when they've matched up in the past. And I just, as good as DJ Turner's playing, I don't know if he's big enough, physical enough to match up with DK Metcalf. So that's going to be interesting to see what direction they go there with Cam Taylor-Britt. But again, I think it's going to be that not just the shells you were mentioning and how they're keeping everything in front, but Al Golden is not really leaned in to the blitz. The first 3 weeks of the season, they were by far the least blitzing team in the league, and they were 32nd. The team that was 31st, they were still 10% lower than that team. They've picked it up a little bit recently, but I just don't see Al going out of his comfort zone, especially Aaron Rodgers isn't really a guy you wanna blitz. He'll
Right.
pick you apart. So I think that is I think you're gonna see a lot more of that zone coverage and just trying to keep everything in front of them and force the Steelers to work their way down the field.
The Steelers' running game has made a little bit of progress the last couple of weeks. Even so, you look on the tape, man. There's still, there's some plays that you think should crack open that one good block away. And obviously you can go around the NFL with that, but they have been leaning more into the jumbo package as of late. I expect that to continue against a 4-down unit up front in the Bengals. Should the Steelers be able to run the ball against this defense, especially with a banged up Hendrickson and what's going on at the linebacker position there?
I think Hendrickson out actually helps the Bengals run defense. He's just
Mm.
not very good against the run. I the run defense has been bad in the past, but it feels like that's turned a corner a little bit. Even against Detroit, they didn't let Detroit run over them the way Detroit does so many other teams. I thought they did a pretty good job of bottling up Gibbs and Montgomery. Josh Jacobs didn't get loose a whole lot last week. It feels like they've taken a step forward, but you know that it all changes if they get out to a lead and start running. I don't know. I didn't dive too much on the short week into Pittsburgh. I don't know how much play action they're using, but that's what you worry about is where they can suck everybody up with the play action, hit over the top. But overall, I think that the passing game is the bigger issue, giving up all the third down conversions. They've done a good job of stopping the run and getting teams into 3rd and long, and then they just can't get off the field on 3rd down. So I would say the run game is the least of the concerns going into this matchup.
I think conversely, and going back to Flacco a little bit, the Bengals weren't great overall on 3rd down in that game against the Packers. I think most of what they converted were the 3rd and 5s or shorter, a couple of them on the runs and all like that. That's got to be the key to this game, especially for a quarterback. They don't want Flacco holding the football, right? And he obviously isn't that mobile of a guy, so they're not going to be that concerned with him taking off with the football and all. But the key is to keep Flacco and this Bengals offense in 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations, force that ball out and occasionally try to use the pressure. And Steelers have done a good job. They'll have they got the full complement of defense now together for the first time this past week against the Browns. That's got to be the game plan here, right? Just don't let Joe Flacco get the football down the field to Chase and Higgins. Make sure you're not, because I think the Bengals even had like 90 something yards after the catch in that game against the Packers. So that's got to be the key here, right? 2nd and long, 3rd and long against Flacco, and then make them punt.
Yeah, and I think that's where the hope comes from the Bengals is getting that run game going where you can avoid those 3rd and longs. If you can just get some efficient runs from Chase Brown and Samaje Perine on 1st and 2nd down and make it 3rd and manageable. We saw the game plan clearly against Green Bay, they were under center a lot, and they never did that with Joe Burrow, and they rarely did it with Jake Browning. But it looked like that was going to be their plan: go under center, use play action, lean into the run game, and then they just fell behind. They weren't getting anything done in that first half, and they kind of went away from it in the second half when they had to be throwing the ball to catch up. It felt like it was constantly a two-score game, and they're throwing the ball, getting it back to a one-score game, and then the defense is giving up another touchdown. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. Joe Flacco under center, really leaning into both Chase Brown and Samaje Perine to try to get these third downs into 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, something manageable.
Does this feel like, even though it's termed as an icy hot bowl, and I joked about this with Alex earlier in the show here, however you want to frame it, Joe Flacco versus Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers versus Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they're both older quarterbacks. They both like to get the football out. They don't like to take sacks. Neither one of them probably going to push the football down the field a lot. Both of them probably going to try to keep the football out of harm's way successfully most of the game. Is this whoever blinks first as far as the mistake goes by either one of these two quarterbacks? Does that kind of feel like what this is?
I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a tight game all the way down to the end, and it's who can pull it out at the end. There's a lot of Bengals Steelers games play out this way, where they're tight one-score games. I don't know that an early mistake or an early blink is going to be the end, especially when you've got experienced quarterbacks like this that are accustomed to coming back and overcoming mistakes. I think this is going to be a situation where it's not going to be one of those crazy 45-42 games, whoever has the ball last, but I still think it's going to come down to who has the ball last and who can go down and maybe get a game-winning field goal at the end. I expect it to be a super close game and a fairly low-scoring one.
I do as well, too. Road AFC North teams are 2-17 in divisional games on Thursdays, 0-9 in the last 9 games. The Steelers are 0-6 in such games, and like it or not, I mean, so, obviously the Steelers 5.5 point favorites on the road, regardless, and all. This is with Joe Flacco on the other side of football now, and with this being a short week and all, this is a dangerous game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I looked at the stats. I went back to 2012. That's when the NFL started doing Thursday night games every single week. They used to just do second half of the year, and the Cleveland Browns are the best Thursday night football team in the league since 2012 at 9-3, and the Steelers are next to last. It's just some sort of weird universe where the opposite is true. The Bengals are in the middle. They're 6-6 in these Thursday night games. But you're right, just division primetime games in general, the home teams really have an upper edge. And for whatever reason, I don't know if the travel's not that great. These teams are all so close together, but it's tough to do these quick turnarounds, and the home teams are really at an advantage. And I think the Bengals having their backs against the wall, this is a must win. It's crazy to say it in October, but their season is over if they don't win this game. And coming in the desperate team, I kind of lean towards them in this one.
All right, put you on the spot for a score prediction. Who wins this 20-17 or 17-16 or whatever game here? What's your prediction on this? Do the Bengals pull this one out?
Yeah, you're right there in the realm. I went right back to week 18 last year. The Bengals won that game 19-17, and I'm sticking with the repeat of that score. I'm going with Bengals 19, Steelers 17 on a late Evan McPherson field goal.
All right, Jay, tell everybody what you got going on over at Bengals Talk these next couple of days and on the Growler podcast.
Yeah, the Growler podcast, if any of the Steeler fans are coming in for the game, we're going to have a live podcast at Tom's Watch Bar and BetMGM at the Banks. It's right there by the stadium. We give away all kinds of prizes. We have free ice cream. We have drink specials. It's a fun time. We make it a fun show, even if, I know it's a Bengals show, but last time we did a live show, there was tons of Lions fans there. They appreciated the pregame entertainment. So come down and see us on BengalsTalk.com. I've got a story up right now about the Logan Wilson benching and his reaction to it, everybody else's reaction to it. You can follow me on Twitter at Jay Morrison. Everything's up there, all the podcast links, all the story links, all the weird stats, like the Thursday night one where the Steelers are bad and the Browns are good.
I think me and you could talk another 30 minutes about music as well, too. Who are you listening to right now?
I'm a little bit on a country kick right
Are
now.
you?
I love Hardy. He's hard rock country.
Okay.
And so I like him a lot. And actually, this is really rare. Next week, I am taking the entire week off. I'm going to miss the Bengals Jets game. My wife and I are going to Florida for a 3-day Luke Combs concert on the beach down there. So that's where I'm at. I still love Shinedown. I still love Breaking Benjamin. Um, we've I can't remember what the last concert we went to was. I might have had a little too many beers, but we still have the hard rock edge to us. But I've been leaning more into country a little bit lately.
And I've been going down the old hair metal rabbit hole for some of those
Oh yeah.
obscure hair metal bands as of late, and building a playlist out of that. So me and you'd be a good hang. I'm a long hair now, still at 50 something years old. So I bet me and you could have some good concert talk. But look, Jay, I know you're busy today. I know you get ready for the game. I appreciate you making time on this Wednesday morning for Alex and myself. And we'll catch up with you, I think, a couple of weeks from now, hopefully, to talk about Cincinnati Steelers rematch here of this one. Appreciate you jumping in on this. And once again, as always, thanks for joining us on the Terrible Podcast, Jay.
Thanks, Dave. Great talking to you.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to Jay Morrison, who covers the team Cincinnati for BengalsTalk.com. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at @byJMorrison. That's BYJ Morrison. So, Dave, again, I was not privy to the conversation. I apologize for that. Just some random internet outages on my end. So, how was the conversation? I'm sure great as always with Jay.
Yeah, I had them all to myself, and but yeah, well, Jay, good as always there, and we got into nuts and bolts about Flacco and the trade and how Flacco played against the Packers, and things to kind of expect moving forward into this game, and how this is really a he went into Hendrickson and talking about if he plays, probably not going to be 100%, and how this Bengals defense still struggling to get pressure on the quarterback, but they're not giving up the big plays on the back end overall there, and really how Jay, long story short, thinks this is going to be a close game on Thursday night between these two teams, and I'm going to ruin the surprise before you can listen to it. Alex, he picked the Bengals to win this one in a close.
Oh, wow. What was his main reason for that?
I just think that he thinks that these two teams play each other close. He thinks one mistake kind of early in the game. I brought up to him, it kind of feels like Flacco versus Flacco or Rodgers versus Rodgers. You're going to see some similar styles within in this. Both teams probably trying to run the football and not put the football in harm's way, but how one kind of early mistake by either team probably not going to ruin the rest of the game. That he expects this one to be tight, and specifically he thinks this game, regardless how the flow of it goes early here will come down to potentially who has the football last.
All right. Well, I like it. We'll see if we pick the Bengals and our predictions a little bit later in the show. So appreciate Jay and his time. I'm sure we'll talk to him later in the season in the rematch. Dave, let's you and I discuss this game. Steelers 4-1. The Bengals are reeling this year. They're still second in the AFC North, but that's not saying much this time of year at 2-4, losing their last four, but trying to find an infusion of offense with Joe Flacco, who had a quiet first half but came on strong in the second half against Green Bay in his Bengals debut. So we'll start there with the Cincinnati offense. Some of the main players, Chase and Higgins and Chase Brown in the backfield. Now Flacco at quarterback. You can see why Mike Tomlin was so mad about the trade, because Flacco is going to be able to get the ball to those guys much better and more effectively than Jake Browning was.
Yeah, look, and looking at the Green Bay tape specifically, they played into Flacco's wheelhouse of knowing where to go with the football, get the ball out quickly as often as they can. They tried to lean on the running game a little bit. It was a sluggish first quarter for them as they got their wheels up underneath Flacco and what they were trying to do. But you wouldn't have known it was his first game in the Cincinnati uniform. I think in totality they ran like 5 RPOs in this thing, a couple of screen dump offs in here, kind of a muted passing game overall. They did have 90 something yards after the catch, which played into this. Flacco was able to start getting the offense to move a little bit better. Obviously, when you get the ball in the hands of your playmakers of Chase and Higgins, that's one thing that they tried and accomplished there. I think the big thing that sticks out in this game overall is the difference of of success that this offense had in third and short situations versus third and long situations there. The Bengals were awful in third and long, more than 5 yards situations, but anything third and fewer there, they were either able to pick it up on the ground, or Flacco was able to complete a short pass, which is right in his wheelhouse here of things they want to do. This is an offense that's going to run a lot of 11 personnel. Specifically now, the Bengals early this morning placed Mike Gesicki on IR. They've got another tight end banged up trying to get through concussion protocol, which Jay Morrison told us there. So that leaves Fant and who's the other one? The other tight end over there.
Oh, it's their blocker, 89.
True Sample. Yeah. So you're probably going to see a lot of 11 personnel within this. They're probably going to continue to try to lean in to the running game. They had it sparked a couple of times in that game, but they're going to try to get Chase Brown and Samaje Perine going in this game. Dylan Fairchild, I think the expectation is for him to be back at left guard. Look, the worst thing that can happen to the Bengals is they get down early in this game offensively, or they struggle to run the football in this one. They put Joe Flacco in a lot of second and third and long type situations here. You want to make Joe Flacco hold on to this football. I brought it up with Jay, and my thought was, and you don't go out and build a secondary and get these components of the Steelers defense like you do if you don't think that you can run more man coverage against some of these better wide receiver groups in the league here. And long story short, Jay thinks the Steelers should probably maybe lean into more zone coverage. And we saw the Packers run, quite a bit of zone against Flacco, and he's, he was able to do Joe Flacco kind of things in there. So where do you come down on this? Do Jay's contention is do you really want to put the ball in the hands of Chase or T Higgins, maybe beating you in man situations, or do you want to take your chances of just sitting back and see if Joe Flacco can pick you apart in zone?
I mean, there's a mix, obviously, which I know is my classic Alex hedge to an answer, but it's never just one thing. But I think, broadly speaking, you play man in this one. That's why you caught Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay have invested so much in the corners, getting these big people to combat, and Joey Porter Jr. And, even though he's not going to play in this game, Corey Trice Jr., just some of those body types out there. So you did that for a reason. So much roster building is, what's our division doing? What is the strength and the tone of the division? I think Pittsburgh's had it tough because they've had to deal with, over the last couple of seasons, not necessarily right now, but the best rushing attack in football in Baltimore and the best passing attack in football in Cincinnati. Now, they didn't know Joe Burrow wouldn't be playing in this game, but you had to kind of deal with everything and the best of, offensively, and you have to deal with that defensively, which is why Pittsburgh has concentrated so much on defense over the years. But to answer your question, yeah, you're gonna play a good deal of man coverage in this one because you brought these guys in for a reason, to play man, to take care of teams like the Bengals. You're going to see twice a year Chase and Higgins locked up long-term this offseason. So, yeah, I'm not going to shy away from that. I'm going to play a lot of man. I'm going to mix things up, too, and not be super predictable, but you're going to play man coverage for sure.
All right, Flacco completed 6 of 10 for 56 yards against man coverage and 1 touchdown, no interceptions against the Packers. In zone, Flacco completed 21 of 33, 63.6% for 153 yards with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. As far as his touchdowns, 1 or 2 touchdowns against cover 1 man and red zone situational coverages where his touchdowns came in this game. They ran 5 RPOs, I think, in this game. They ran 2 design screens in this game. And versus the blitz, Flacco completed just 4 of 10 for 41 yards with 1 touchdown in this game. And then specifically, tendency breakdown against the Packers. They were in 11 personnel for 55 plays, almost 90%, and they were in 12 personnel, 7 plays in this game. And when facing pressure against the Packers, he completed just 6 of 12 for 21 yards in this game. So the key is, takeaway here is getting pressure on Flacco, mixing in some blitz to do so, and keep him in third and long situations overall there. And specifically on the Third down plays or yards after the catch, they had 93 against the Packers. And on the 15 third down plays on the longer ones, they were not great on these, on ones of more than 5 yards.
I will say Flacco, it's a similar conversation, I think, from Gabriel. It's funny enough from Flacco to Gabriel, but Flacco was getting the ball out quickly at 2.35 seconds last week, which is even faster than Aaron Rodgers' average on the year. And I think Flacco was really struggling in Cleveland. There's a lot more weapons to play with in Cincinnati. And so the first thought at quarterback is the old medical saying of do no harm. And Flacco wasn't doing harm to the Bengals offense. They turned the ball over a ton with Browning. Flacco did not. He wasn't taking bad sacks, wasn't making bad mistakes, able to beat the blitz, even if that meant just throwing the football away. So, Flacco can continue that. That makes him the tough out, but he was making a bunch of mistakes in Cleveland, locking onto his first read. And that's why he ended up getting yanked and ended up being traded. But just a final thought on that question about man and zone. Remember, man and zone are... Remember when? I'm having a rough episode behind the scenes here, guys. It's been a crazy week. Man and zone are broad terms. These are, you can play man in a variety of different ways. It's not just cover one or just straight man the entire time. You can play two man. You can disguise things. You can play combination coverages and lock the backside and 3-by-1 formations and zone coverage, the same thing. So man and zone is not just the same, okay, play this one singular man coverage the entire game. There's a bunch of variations behind it. And I imagine you're going to play all those things when you're facing a veteran quarterback who's seen it all. You're not going to just line up and cover one the entire game and roll it out that way. You're going to mix some things up in how you play man and how you play zone. So there's a lot of nuance to that discussion.
Yeah, and look, they did not turn the football over in that game, and that's one thing that they're relying on with Joe Flacco is they're hoping that, obviously he had problems in Cleveland there, but that's one of the things that they're counting on is Joe Flacco won't make the big mistake, but he's generally going to probably do that in pressure type situations. And you look at the Steelers defense, and once again, you got the full component of that defense out there. And the one sack that the Packers had in this game was by Van Ness, and I don't know if you saw that or not. It was a quick win against Orlando Brown down in the low red zone there, where he just he used his quickness to get around Orlando Brown there, and I couldn't help but think, oh man, if quickness is in play here, Herbig. That fits Herbig's game, right? So I personally, and I put this out on Twitter too, talking about Herbig in the game that he had against the Browns, 2 sacks, probably could have been 4. I'm looking for Herbig to have another nice game here. I think you can see another 2+ sacks for Herbig in this one.
Well, he tagged Orlando Brown Jr. last year on that sack fumble that Peyton Wilson recovered. Remember, that was the whole Hard Knocks thing of Tomlin challenging Herbig. They brought in Orlando Brown Jr., paid him a bunch of money. That's your matchup. That's your guy. And Herbig won. Whenever I talk to Jay for the next time, unless you asked it, I know I'm of this stance, and offensive lineman stance should be whatever's comfortable. But man, Orlando Brown Jr. has the weirdest stance I've seen for an offensive tackle. It's so narrow, it's so closed off. I don't know how that's effective at all, and it hasn't been. He has struggled, so that's certainly a guy to target in this one. I want to see Fairchild at left guard too. It feels like the Bengals bring in a new left guard every year to try to find someone who could stop Cam Hayward, and they've yet to be able to find that guy. They brought in Volson, and they've had vets try to filter in, and no one's had success against Cam Hayward. So we'll see how Fairchild fares after he's coming off a knee injury. He should play in this game. But the Flacco, he's getting the ball to his eligibles. T. Higgins had a single season best in receptions and targets last week, and so he's getting the ball to Chase, who aligns everywhere, and then getting the ball to Higgins. To me, it's just, they're so one-dimensional. They can't run the ball a lick. Chase Brown has been the least effective running back in the NFL. The offensive line is giving him nothing. It's so hard to be such a straight drop back, 5 out in the pattern, 5-in protection team without a run game. It's why the Bengals offense has, I think, struggled so much.
And then they even started off that game, I think, on a carry to Jamar Chase. They're going to try to get Jamar Chase involved in this one early and get the ball in his hands, while at the same time probably try. You can't run and pass on the same play there. But I mean, they obviously going to want to try to get their ground game going early. But on top of that, they're going to try to get Jamar Chase head in the game as quick as possible. You got to tackle the catch. You just can't let those guys are both going to get their catches in this game. Higgins and Chase, but you just got to limit the explosion, much in the way that the Packers did. Keep everything in front of you. Don't let the 7-yard catch end up 45 yards down the field. That's going to be a key component to this. And also, don't give Joe Flacco a short, not turning the ball over down in your end and giving Joe Flacco short field to work with is also paramount in this game. So, you have to be scared from the aspect of the Browns Bengals offense just for the sheer fact of the playmakers that they have in Chase and in Higgins and an experienced quarterback in Flacco. I'd much rather be talking about the Steelers losing this game because of great plays made on one-on-one situations by Higgins or Chase than I would talking again about how Joe Flacco just, meticulously carved up your zone defense, 5 yards at a time.
Yeah, but those guys can make those plays. She said that crazy touchdown against Green Bay in the end zone last week. Flacco will throw it up to him. We call it the Flacco offense for a reason. Throw it up and hope for a PI or your guy go make a play, and they got receivers who can make plays. And even the other guys, like Noah Fant's a really good athlete. He burned Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, and I think Joseph is a really good player who gets overshadowed because obviously the focal points are Higgins and Chase. But I think whenever he becomes a free agent 2 years from now, if he becomes a number 2 somewhere, he could have a really good season. So there's talent around, but I think Pittsburgh can make Cincinnati one-dimensional, and with the man coverage horses they have now and Ramsey and Slay and Porter and that group being healthy really puts Pittsburgh in a favorable situation. Last thing, Dave, for me, I'm blitzing those inside linebackers on early downs. I'm testing Chase Brown. They do not trust Chase Brown in pass protection. He's rarely in part of the protection. He'll go out in the flat to try to pull the linebacker out. They won't use him that often, and really hardly at all. In third down, obvious pass situations, they bring in P. Ryan for that. They use Drew Sample as a tight end, as a sniffer sometime to replace that. So can you blitz Queen and Wilson, who have been effective blitzing this season, and force Brown to pass protect? I know there's the risk of him going out in the pattern and him catching a pass in the flat, and he's got a bunch of speed, but I'm blitzing those backers because they just don't trust Brown in pass protection. Also, the Bengals have been bad in stunt pickup. So run twists in games and make the Bengals communicate, pass things off because they have not picked that up cleanly this season.
And look, their offensive line, they got a known guy in Orlando Brown Jr. Yeah, they got a pedigree guy in Amarius Mims there, but he's dinged up this week, and he's going to be facing a lot of TJ Watt in this one. And look, the interior of their line, is still, there's still a lot of questions. I mean, Fairchild probably going to make it back from injury this week. Ted Karras doesn't put a huge fear in opposing defenses, and then you got the other Rivers kid over there as well too. So this Steelers front should be able to at least on paper, you would think they'd be able to handle this front in the running game and especially get after them in passing situations.
Yeah, the Bengals have not rushed for more than 85 yards in a game this season. They've been under 56 yards in all but one game this year. That's just a hard road to win, and unless you have Burrow that can do it all now that he's out. It's just a tough game plan. I'm not sure what's going on over there in Cincinnati right now, but the injuries to Burrow are obviously impacting the entire plan.
Absolutely. All right, defense.
Yeah, I'm still working through the defense a little bit. I got one game on them so far. 4-3 team. It's a different DC, but a lot of the same pieces. Some changes in terms of the rookies playing. Demetrius Knight, their leading inside linebacker now, but it's controlling Hendrickson if he plays. I think Pittsburgh can certainly run the ball. The Bengals' run defense has been porous this season, and it's not like they're even getting chunked. Their longest rush they've allowed this year is 30 yards. They've allowed not a ton of explosive plays, but they're just getting killed 4 and 5 yards a carry at a time. So bring in big people, run the ball. Pittsburgh should be able to control the line of scrimmage in this game.
Man, and I talked about this with Jay too. You got a couple of the changing of the guard, if you will. Logan Wilson's being phased down. Fewer snaps for him in the middle of that defense. They've got some draft picks in Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter they're trying to get integrated into this thing, and I think they do a good job of holding their ground in the middle of the line with Slayton and B.J. Hill. But this is specifically what I'm looking for, and I told Jay this as well too. Even if Hendrickson plays, if he doesn't, I don't care. Whoever is lined up at that right defensive end spot for them, that's I'm putting Washington and Spencer Anderson over on that side, and they better pack a lunch over on that side. That's where I think the Steelers can make hay, should be expected to make hay in the running game, would be to the left of the Steelers center, more specifically over to that right tackle spot over there. If I'm Steelers, I'm loading up trying to run the football at. I want Trey Hendrickson to tap out of that game if he even plays, and Miles Murphy, whoever's in there on that side. I want them to come out of this knowing that they had to handle Darnell and Spencer Anderson quite a bit in this one.
Yeah, well said. And Pittsburgh's had a lot of success historically running against the Bengals. The Bengals have allowed 110 rushing yards plus in all but one game this season. They got some pedigree up front. They just have not materialized. Osai and Jenkins and Murphy and Stewart coming back, but run the ball. It's a kind of a similar game plan to Minnesota. The Vikings played some too high on early downs. The Bengals will play too high on early downs. Sometimes they will try to spin that safety down to have that additional add-on late before the snap. So you got to be alert for that. But the Bengals will try to go with some heavier fronts, some penny fronts, kind of 5-1 type of looks. They'll play too high behind. Pittsburgh can break through that first level. That second level's free, and there's going to be some big runs on the other side. So to me, this is kind of a similar game plan to Minnesota. The Bengals don't do all the creative Flores mugging stuff and chaotic pre-snap looks that Minnesota does. But from a run defense standpoint, it's I think, similar. The Bengals probably a little beefier on the interior than Minnesota was with Hargrave and Allen, but conceptually, I see a lot of the same traits.
Opposing offenses, when they've run to the left end, specifically against the Bengals, 24 plays, 8.5 yards per gain.
And that's the offense's left end, the defense's right?
That's teams running to their own left.
Okay, so that's at Hendrickson, which is, to your point, what you said, if he even plays, and I'll be very happy if that guy's in street clothes for this game.
Right, so that should be the focus there.
I saw a lot of cover 2 against the Lions. I know the stats say they're playing more middle of the field close. They hadn't gotten to the Packers game yet, just hadn't had the time to. So I know the Bengals played a lot of cover 2 against Pittsburgh last year, and Russ was taking all those checkdowns. I don't know if we're going to see that again. It is a new DC back there, but you know, the secondary's not scaring a lot of people either.
Yeah, probably they're not giving up the explosive plays, I don't think. But and they're okay on, what do they have, 7 takeaways, I think?
Yeah, they're taking the ball away decent clip.
Yeah, 6 interceptions, 1 forced fumble there. So they're taking the ball away a little bit there. You can't let them do that in this game. But I think predominantly they have been, at least in totality, goes as far as coverage. They've been, cover 1, 20%, cover 3, 35%, and they're mixing in some quarter, half, cover 6.
Geno Stone's filled in. He had a tough start to last year, I think, but he's come on strong since. He's got a pick this year, a sack, 3 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for a loss, 37 tackles, kind of doing it all for them. So they got some chess pieces back there. Hill was a versatile kid coming out of Michigan, but yeah, I think Pittsburgh runs the ball, stays on schedule, has a very Minnesota-type game. They'll be in good shape.
All right, I agree.
All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here on this Bengals game?
Well, I guess we got to get our predictions out there, even though we'll save the rest for our predictions against the spread for Friday. What is this on my bookie right now? I think it's 5.5 still, is it? Let me double check. Hold on.
Yeah, I think it opened at 5.5. Not much time for that line to even move.
5.5 here. So here's an interesting component though, and I read this out to Jay as well too. Road AFC North teams are 2-17 in divisional games on Thursdays. They are 0-9. The road team is in the last 9 games, and the Steelers are 0-6 in such games on Thursday night on the road against a divisional opponent.
And 2-9 overall in Mike Tomlin's tenure. And one of those wins came in 2007, his first year against the Rams. That was the game that Willie Parker broke his leg and basically ended his career, which is how far back one of those wins came. So we know that history is not on Pittsburgh's side. I go back to last year, very similar situation. You were facing a 2-8 Browns team. You're on the road. You're thinking, okay, go in and beat the Browns and you'll be good. And of course, they lose that game. So that is what you have to combat. So on paper, Pittsburgh certainly looks better, but we've had that discussion many times before. It is tough, short week. You're playing Flacco, a much better quarterback. If Jake Browning was starting this game, even Mike Tomlin's probably sitting there going, we're gonna win this game. Flacco's a different story. So I think it's close. I think it's ugly. I think it's a slop fest in a lot of ways in this one. But Pittsburgh has been so much better at the line of scrimmage. That's going to give them the leg up in this one. I will take Pittsburgh to win this game 17-13.
All right. I am, look, all these stats aside, we provide them out there for entertainment and all. And I do think this is going to be a close game. I'm with Jay. I just think this sets up for a rock fight on both sides of the offenses here. I think it's close going into the fourth quarter. I subscribe to the fact this could come down to the last possession of the game as well, too. But in typical Dave fashion, the last several weeks, I think the Steelers pulled this one out with a late field goal. I'm going surprise 2017.
Again? These are like
Again.
five times this year.
Yeah.
You're going to keep doing it until you get it right. You're like, they got to
got-
place the same lotto numbers each night.
Yeah, I'm running my small menu of plays until I get it right, much like the Steelers offense there. So it's going to be any given Sunday, any given Thursday and all, it's going to be, you got a long time to think about this and discuss it, and fans to get mad if for somehow you lose this game. This is a game the Steelers should win, and I think they will.
All right. So as we always do, the big picture takeaway, Pittsburgh wins this game. They will win it because fill in the blank.
Don't turn the football over. Run the ball effectively. Convert on third downs. Keep Joe Flacco in third and long situations, and don't let them run the football. And just go from there.
Yeah, I think it's trench play, where Pittsburgh has won and improved greatly in the recent weeks, and then adding guys like Ramsey and Slay with the specific intent of taking away and winning matchups and games like these. If Pittsburgh loses this game, and if history repeats itself, fill in the blank, why do they lose?
They lose because they turned the football over too many times, gave Joe Flacco a short field to work on, let Jamar Chase or T. Higgins get them for 40-plus touchdown.
Yeah, I think Higgins and Chase make some plays, but I also think if they lose, some of those other Plan C type of Bengals guys make plays too, and Fant and Yosevas, a very classic Steelers thing where they take away Chase and Yosevas has 2 touchdowns or something like that. It's just a very Steelers thing to happen to them. So I think sloppy football, turn the football over, and then where one of those other guys gives you, Fant, Yosevas, Brown in the pass game, that's how I think they could lose.
Just make Joe Flacco beat you on long fields, period.
Also, be clean on special teams. Without Killebrew on the road, short week of practice, hard to get the next guy reps for your personal protector and kick coverage, which has been very good, but don't allow the big special teams play that gives the Bengals momentum and short field points that can really be the elixir in a game like this.
All right. No Steelers beating Steelers.
Right. All right, Dave. We'll get to the rest of our picks, like you said, for Friday. So with that in mind, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. There's not many in here. In fact, I'm probably going to, because this has been such a disjointed show and internet connections and hard to put together here. Well, let's save some questions for Friday, Alex, because I think we're running a little bit long here on top of it here. So with that, you can follow me there. Plus, same old usual people in here right now. Brett Nile, we'll get to your question. Paul Brown, Bryce is in here again. So some of the usual suspects. So maybe we can get a few newer people in here asking questions as well, too. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Follow the directions that way. So we will be back on Friday to discuss win, lose, or draw, and go from there. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.